this extraordinary, unprecedented attack in the Middle East yesterday. I mean, I don't think anybody this morning would have woken up and looked at their mobile phone in quite the same way again, because this is, as I say, unprecedented, and if it can happen in the Lebanon, it could happen anywhere. Some papers are saying today that this is a green light for someone like Putin, who could hack into our phones, should he choose, and explode them.
This isn't about hacking, though. This is about, literally, the allegation, planting a small amount of explosives...
It's analogue hacking, isn't it?
...physically inside 5,000 Taiwan-made pages ordered by Hezbollah and then detonating them. I mean, Kevin, just for our viewers, just explain Hezbollah and why Mossad, the Israeli spy agency, would want to blow up their pages.
Yeah, Hezbollah is both a political party and a paramilitary group. Part of the government of Lebanon. It's branded a terrorist organisation in the UK, European Union, US, and it's on the northern border of Israel. Huge tensions. They've been fighting each other. It's allied to Iran and
So
Hamas.
Israel sees them as a threat.
They see them as an enemy.
They say they're being attacked by Hezbollah every day.
Yeah, and Hezbollah see Israel as an enemy. And Israel has assassinated Hezbollah leaders. Hezbollah would like to do that to Israelis, but doesn't have the capacity. But it's state terrorism, unquestionably, by
5,000
Israel,
pages.
if Israel has done it. And if Israel has done this to Hezbollah, what if Hezbollah or Hamas or Putin or Iran or Al-Qaeda somehow intercept the supply chain of everyday devices, whether it's pages, mobile phones, whatever it is in your house?
It's opened a door, hasn't it? Into something completely new. A little bit like the very first plane hijack. It opened the door to a new kind of terrorism.
So if and Israel has not accepted or denied responsibility, if it is Israel that has done it, the worry is somebody else can do it. You get into the factory, or while the pages are being shipped, you somehow hijack them, and an incredible operation installing the explosives. Somehow you can detonate them at some point. We don't know quite how that works.
We're not absolutely certain that it probably was explosives inserted at some point in the supply chain, but there are other theories still out there, which is that, for example, it could have been a corruption and a hacking into the lithium batteries in the phones. But that's why when you check onto an aircraft these days, they always ask you, is there anything with a lithium battery inside your bag? Because they can explode. They are explosive devices. And there is speculation that possibly
Richard, there's big issues now about what you take on aeroplanes, because normally you take your phone on, it just goes through. If it's off, you might be asked to put it on, but presumably these pages were being used all the time, then all of a sudden something has triggered the explosion. So there will be a security review.
The irony is that the Hezbollah operatives had moved away from mobile phones to use pages because they thought they were more secure, they couldn't be tracked. But that was a big mistake. And someone has compared this to when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941. They thought that would see off America, but actually what it did was it stirred the bear, and America then entered the Second World War. This will almost certainly, or could certainly, lead to Lebanon and Israel now going to war.
Just before we move on, what would, if it is Israel, and no one's seriously suggesting...
I can't think it's anybody else.
It can't be anybody else, partly because of the know-how, let alone the motive. What would be their overall objective in doing this? Pure terror to unsettle?
Well, they've taken out a lot of very important operatives for Hezbollah, so they'd have destabilised the enemy. Israel say they're being subjected to daily attacks on their border by Hezbollah, so they're going on the offensive. But I suspect there was always probably going to be a war with Lebanon, and this is probably...
It risks a bigger war. It probably blows away US peace efforts. And if that wider war occurs, it has huge implications for the UK. We could be dragged into it militarily. We'd certainly feel the economic blowback.
Let's move on to a backlash that continues over what happened to Hugh Edwards yesterday. And, Kevin, your paper this morning, Daily Mirror, has the headline, Hugh Edwards ruined my life. He should be in prison. Now, this is the story of the young person, it's an exclusive by your head of showbiz, in fact, the young person who sparked the beginning of Hugh Edwards' downfall has demanded to know why the BBC newsreader was not jailed, fearing he could prey on young people again. It's a 21-year-old whose mum and stepdad blew the whistle on Hugh Edwards. This was the original story that appeared in the papers about Hugh Edwards paying him tens of thousands of pounds in return for X-rated images. There was no criminality found in that particular case. But now, because of the fact that he had these images of child abuse on his phone, the person in the original story says he ruined his life, and the victims in this case can't be forgotten. It's quite disgusting. People like this get to roam the streets while others are in jail for petty theft and minor crimes.
This is the young man who, as you say, was paid a small fortune. He was a drug addict. His parents went to the BBC.
And he was a teenager at the time.
Complained. They got just brushed off, so they went to the Sun. I think he's got a point, actually. And there's the Hugh Edwards case, and there is how the BBC responded, but then there is this wider issue of how we deal and how we punish people who are paedophiles and are taking images of sexually abused and exploited, raped,
that's the Sun's front
children.
page.
It is.
That's the Sun's front
children.
page.
They're not children.
They're children who are being
The Sun
abused
have
and
gone back through
exploited.
the criminal
Horrific.
files over the last 9 months alone, just the last 9 months, and they've identified 27 prosecutions in less than a year where every single case the judge allowed those trading in these photos to walk free. There was no jailing at all. And they've totaled the number of perverted images that these men were prosecuted, they're all men, were prosecuted for. There were over 1 million of them.
It's disgusting.
Over 1 million images.
And on the very day Hugh Edwards escaped jail, a homeless man went to prison for nicking some cakes, and somebody else was sent to prison for stealing some vacuum cleaners, presumably to resell them because he or she didn't have any money.
So do you think some good will come out of the Hugh Edwards case? Because we will see a review,
they have to review it.
Of how
they have to review it, because, as we made clear yesterday, the magistrate was acting within the guidelines, which says you've got to take into account first-time offence,
change the guidelines.
And pleading guilty. You've got to change the guidelines, because it was horrific what Edwards did. Some of those young men, some of those books, they were 7.
And
we don't know how they are. They're children.
They're children, and they're exploited in the most horrible, awful, vile...
For sexual gratification.
Now, in the cakes and the vacuum cleaners, I would have thought there's a lot of other offences being committed in the past.
But how does it look?
It looks terrible, because it is terrible. And the default position is if you're a first-time offender receiving these images, not making them, not the actual person who's committing the physical abuse. If you receive them, the default position is you do not go to prison. That is the default position. Now, the big public debate now is whether that should be changed.
Well, Kelly Badenoch wants a review of the guidelines. Tom Tugendhat's written to the government's top legal advisor to raise concerns about escaping a prison sentence. I think the thing that is disturbing everybody is that what message does this send about the abuse of children? That the guidelines suggest that if you're in receipt of these images and you don't immediately say, block, delete, I'm reporting this to the police, that actually you are condoning, encouraging, providing a market for the abuse of children, which is horrific. And that a prison sentence for even a first-time offence would say, you do not ever receive these images, and it shuts down the market, and once you shut down the market, there is less incentive for people
and we have to remember
the nature of the crime.
That it's accepted by the court that Edwards didn't buy these images. He gave the paedophile who supplied the images £1,500 as gifts. It's the same thing.
I think the man or woman in the street would say that he did.
It's the same thing.
Basically, he was sent the images, and then within hours sometimes, the paedophile who sent him the image said, now what about my present? And he would send him either a present, Nike trainers, or money for presents, up to a value of £1,500. If that's not buying images, I don't know what is.
But may I just say that the two Conservatives, Kelly Badenoch and Tom Tugendhat, neither have said he should have been jailed. I mean, I've heard politicians talk about let's have a review, concerns about guidelines. Look, I think if you're receiving these images and you're approving of these images and you give £1,500 as a thank you, I'm sorry, I think you should do jail time. I mean, it is so vile.
Because you are creating the market.
And again, I'll accept prisons are full. I'll accept that short-term sentences sometimes don't work, often don't work. But I think you just have to have a statement. This form of abuse
parents of
not
children as young as 7 and 8 must be shaking their heads in disbelief to think that this man is still free.
Yeah.
Because it could be their child.
Well, and the thing is, as we know, those children have not been identified.
No.
So we don't know if those children
are okay,
if they're receiving counselling, if they're safe, or if they're still subject to abuse. And that is such a chilling thought. Elon Musk has weighed in. He's accused Britain of having misplaced priorities because Hugh Edwards was spared jail. And he retweeted a post branding the sentence as unbelievable. Now, this, of course, is just weeks after he said the Prime Minister was two-tier Keir in the wake of the riots. Now, we mentioned this yesterday because one user yesterday tweeted, "Unbelievable. A BBC presenter just avoided jail time for buying paedophile images. Meanwhile, Britain sent a man to 38 months prison for," and this is what the poster said, satirical post on X about the riots, what's happening. The 38 months in prison wasn't for a satirical post, it was for a post which was inciting violence. But that's 3 years jail time for a post on Twitter and no jail time for receiving a post on WhatsApp which showed actual criminality.
Yeah. And it does look...
And abuse.
It does look disproportionate, and it is, I'm afraid.
I mean, people should definitely receive jail time for inciting violence.
But you know, most of the people, including Elon Musks of this world, who raise objections to that, don't think people should go to prison for inciting violence because they're on the far right and they tacitly approved of what went on when people were rioting and rampaging in Britain. So if you incite violence, you get what you deserve. I think the sentences are wrong when you do not go to prison for receiving and approving of the vile sexual abuse. And sometimes rape, I don't know what... These were Category A pictures, the very worst, included moving images, which means they're video. Yeah. The very, very worst. Also, he should have gone to prison. There's no question.
The disgusting creep who supplied the pictures didn't go to prison either.
No.
What's going on?
No.
Yeah.
Well, look, the one thing that is absolutely certain is that that Hugh Edwards, as a public figure, is finished.
Yeah.
And will never come back. In a different context, Prince Andrew is finished. Prince Andrew finished, of course, by an interview that he chose to give to Emily Maitlis. Yeah. And Emily Maitlis, I'm pleased to tell you, will be joining us live in about an hour and a half. They're giving a live and exclusive interview about the dramatisation that she's produced of that interview. And I guess the question there is, as this is the second dramatisation of Andrew's downfall, are we kicking him in the head a bit too much? I mean, I say that not as a supporter of Prince Andrew. I think he's asked for it and he's got it. But is this becoming dangerously close to bullying?
I think if his victim, who was paid 10, 12 million pounds,
if he's not sure
trafficked.
If he's not sure if he met.
I think of them first if we're looking for victims here. But in truth, the story of the story, I'm a little bored about now. I will admit, I feel I've read enough about the story of the story. His behaviour, yeah, look, it's totally reprehensible. He's still in the royal family. He still has some perks. I think that's an issue. But the story about the story, I'm sorry, I've had enough.
But mustn't forget, Prince Andrew went and stayed with Epstein. When he had been convicted. We've been talking about paedophilia earlier with Hugh Edwards. He'd been convicted of paedophilic offences, and Andrew knew it, and he stayed with him for 4 nights. Yeah. So apparently to say goodbye to him because he was going to end the friendship.
Oh, because he was an honourable man.
Because he was an honourable man. Stunning misjudgment, and I'm afraid you reap what you sow because he's had an incredibly privileged life.
Well, in that case, the following question is simply this. If it's over for Hugh Edwards, is there any way back for Prince Andrew?
No.
No, there shouldn't be.
No. There's a very nice estate called Balmoral in Scotland. They could do with a few gamekeepers up there.
There's a nice place called the Tower of London. They've got a few cells. I mean, I would have thought that was a bit more appropriate.
He's never been convicted of any crime,
Never been,
by the way.
No.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
No.
That's why he paid.
He's never admitted...
And he didn't go to the US. He said he was going to help the authorities with their investigation, the FBI, and then, as far as we know, he didn't.
I think it's about as unlikely as Hugh Edwards making a comeback that Andrew will ever fly to America.
Because he'd be arrested.
Pinched on landing.
I want to go and see Harry and Meghan. The moment his feet touch the tarmac...
The FBI would be on the plane.
Yeah,
they would.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the cost of living crisis. Of course, inflation figures come out in just 15, 18 minutes' time. But Devastating story on the front of the Daily Express this morning. Pensioner deaths this winter may be even higher than feared because many stripped of their fuel allowance will stop using heating. More than 1.5 million people are not going to turn their heating on at all this winter. And Never mind how cold it gets.
Heating versus eating, what a terrible choice for them to have to make.
Well, Labour made the charge continually at the Conservatives about forcing pensioners to choose between eating and heating, and often it was a legitimate charge. Now, of the 1.7 million, the pensioner group within it, 1 in 4 of the pensioners who say they won't turn on their heating say it's because they're going to lose the fuel allowance. Now, some might have the money and be able to do it, but psychologically, they're losing a winter heating allowance.
£300,
and
which is going to have a massive effect.
And we shouldn't forget, Susanna, that extraordinary piece of research which Labour Party published in 2017, saying that up to 4,000 pensioners would die prematurely if their winter fuel allowance was removed.
That's right.
Inflation eats into your living standards.
Yes.
But your living standards are also the amount of money you have coming in, whether you're working, a pension or getting benefits. So there are going to be 10 million pensioners that just are going to be up to £300 worse off. In a way, inflation, whether it's 2.2, 2.1, 2.3, is going to have less of an impact on them than losing £300 cash.
At the moment, the government isn't budging on this at all. I mean, they've been pressed very hard on programmes like this, and they are not moving. They are not showing the slightest sign of doing a U-turn. I have to ask this. What if, come December, January, maybe February, we get a serious cold snap, one of Britain's serious cold snaps that goes on and on and on for weeks? Might that provoke a U-turn? Because then, based on the Labour Party's own research, we're going to see deaths.
There is a mechanism, severe cold weather payments. I can't quite remember the full term, that if it's really particularly cold for a prolonged period, then you automatically get a payment if you're on benefits. But presumably that won't be all pensioners. But no, I think they could. I think they could U-turn because the fact they haven't is ludicrous.
What a conversation
because
that
it's
we're
taken
even having.
such a hit.
Yes.
What a conversation we even need to
you
have
love
this
it.
conversation.
I hate it. No.
I don't want to see. I do not want to see pensioners having to choose between food or heating. I do not. But who would have thought we'd be having this conversation barely 11 weeks into a new Labour government? It's extraordinary.
Absolutely. It wasn't in the manifesto. It was never discussed.
We should not be having to conceive of this conversation.
And it's a very wrong choice.
What do you make about working from home? Now, we're very glad you two don't work from home, that you're in here every
Well, we all did during the pandemic,
isn't it?
We all did during the pandemic, and I hated it.
But we understand that teachers are going to be encouraged to do work from home. Now, a lot of people would think, hang on a moment, surely teachers need to be in classrooms and need to be in charge of pupils. But Labour wants to tackle a recruitment crisis and believes that teachers are leaving the profession in their droves because they can't balance what they have to do at home, particularly, for instance, working mums, looking after sick kids who have time off school, or doing the school run. If you allow them a whole chunk of free periods, let's say on a Friday, then they could work from home.
Working doing what, though? What, marking?
Yes, doing the marking, exactly.
But they do it now. Anyone who knows any teachers, and for good or worse, I know quite a few teachers.
My sister was a teacher. She worked a lot at the kitchen table.
So, so this is not your classroom time. This is. Do you have to stay?
No, this would be classroom time.
No, it's marking. No, you've got to be in front of class to teach kids and do sport or whatever.
But it would be in school time.
Yes, but it is the time when you would be doing the marking. Now, currently, you'd have to be stuck in a staff room or wherever. This is, you could do it from home. I think it's a good idea. And as a trust, now remember, many schools, certainly most secondary schools now, are run by trusts, which are charitable or private companies. They're not run by your local authority. But they've trialled it and they say it's better, it works better, and it means you stop teachers leaving because they feel greater satisfaction at work and they can balance their own lives.
It's not just teachers, though, is it? I mean, we have a policy, apparently, that civil servants now should be turning up at the office 3 days a week.
People work.
But apparently the Labour government has quietly said we're not going to enforce that. Basically,
it's not just civil servants.
And the business secretary says it can be just as effective. How does he know? But how do they know this? What research have they done to show whether working from home you do get the same level of productivity? Because I'd be highly suspicious.
I tell you why.
If you're at home, there's the fridge, there's the garden, there's the shops around the corner. Take the dog for a walk.
And you work from home.
Is that what you're up
You
to?
sometimes work from home. I hope your editor's not watching.
Let's be realistic about it.
I mean,
let's be realistic about it.
Let's
it's a
be
great
realistic.
opportunity. Whereas if you're in the office, you're working all day.
Look,
of course, there's an opportunity to skive, and people are
working from home. Are people who would skive when they're in the office.
Come off
now, there's
it,
a lot
Kevin.
of people can't.
Get real.
There's a lot of people.
It's easier to skive at home.
There is a lot of people who can't work from home. I remember getting on a flight just before COVID, and the pilot announced, "You'd be pleased to know I'm not working from home today."
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, I think most people probably can't work from home, but there's a lot of big banks do it with people who do your credit checks, do your security checks. I know somebody who does it.
Slippery slope.
A slippery slope. It's accepting we live in the 21st century.
Well, I'll tell you who's had enough of it. The boss of Amazon, a guy called Andy Jassy. He's told all his staff across the world that they're going to have to turn up at the office 5 days a week from January, no arguments.
Because he's obviously concluded, as a very successful company, he's not getting what he was getting out of them before.
As we know,
he looks at the before and the...
As we know, Amazon
Unlike the business secretary,
Amazon has a reputation as a slave-driving company, which is why you've had all those revolts and strikes in depots in Britain.
It's not slave-driving to ask people to turn up at the office.
The office work is different. But let's wait until he finds it more difficult to recruit staff, because people will go to better employers. If they're offered some form of flexibility,
going to work
you're
is
more
quite
likely
a
to go
good
to
thing. We've got all these problems with mental health in this country now. Going to work is quite a good thing. You interact socially. You can have discussion and discourse.
I particularly feel for the 20-somethings who are starting out on their careers.
Yeah.
If you're isolated at home, you're not having a social life, and you're not potentially meeting partners. Because a lot of people meet their partners.
Of course they do.
And you learn from your colleagues, just chatting.
That's why it's important to go to work.
But that's about getting the balance right. It doesn't mean you have to be in the same workplace 5 days a week, 8, 10 hours, 12 hours.
He's going home after this. He's going home after this. Quite obvious. Yeah, exactly.
No, that's interesting. Do you write your columns and your pieces from home, or do you both go into the office?
I write my Sunday column from home, but Monday to Thursday...
So you work from home?
No, hang on. Monday to Thursday, I'm in the office.
You are?
Without fail.
All day, OK.
Without
what about
fail.
you?
You work from home.
I had a piece in the paper yesterday. I wrote on a Sunday.
But that's because it's a weekend.
It's on a Sunday.
Yeah, when the office is open, the newsroom, and you used to go in and you don't go now. You work from home.
I work.
Oh dear, you've been caught red-handed.
Or Friday, I'm in the office.
You work, so it's good enough for you, but not other people.
Right,
that's
Kevin,
what you say.
what about you?
I do work from home sometimes. Yeah,
all the time.
Most days I work in Parliament. Most days, Monday to Thursday, I'll go into Parliament. I won't today, because it's in recess.
OK. I wonder if Davey works from home rehearsing stunts like this. Can we just have a look?
Yes. OK, so this is Ed Davey doing, at the Lib Dem conference, a sing-along of Take a Chance on Me. Let's take a chance on Ed.
Have a listen.
My first in line, 'cause this is free. Take a chance on me. Leave me, let me go and be alive.
Oh, sorry. Have we been rather unfair to Ed Davey and isolated his microphone and completely faded out the group sing-along? Because I'm not sure any of us would do particularly well in that environment.
He is a shocking singer.
Oh.
But, you know...
How could he do that to my beloved ABBA?
When we saw him coming down log flumes and jumping in
Jet
Lake
skiing to the
Windermere,
conference.
he ended up with the most MPs that party has had since 1923. I know there were other reasons.
That can't have been why.
No, I think
seriously, I think coming down a log flume gets you a seat.
He wouldn't have got any coverage otherwise.
He wouldn't.
He'd have been drowned out in the big two-party fight between Starmer and
he was also
Sunak.
trying to distract attention from his own role in the great post office scandal when he was
Was he the post office minister?
Yes, he was.
He's forgotten that most.
The man who first said to Mr. Bates, "I don't want to see you."
But no, that is appalling singing.
Apparently, so our editors say that sound mix had nothing to do with us.
That was their sound mix.
That was sent through to us like that.
The look of frozen horror on the faces of his MPs as he was singing badly.
Yeah.
I know, feeling like performing seals.
Performing seals, they were. They should have given a ball.
They're just thinking, shut him up.
People embarrassing themselves at conferences.
It's like dad dancing.
It's the season for it, isn't it? Do you remember dancing with...
Can we get it off
Theresa May?
We don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah.
I do.
Can I ask, do you guys drink pints? Are you pint drinkers?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, not many. I don't drink as many as he does.
Well, not for much longer. They've done a survey, the University of Cambridge, where they got local pubs to stop serving the pint because we're the only country in the world that serves drinks in this larger glass as a pint glass. No one else serves beer in that volume. And they got them to serve it in, I think, 2/3 size glasses.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of success. People didn't complain and they drank a bit less.
And did they get paid? Did they have to pay the same amount of money for the beer?
No, unfortunately, the bars could face falls in revenue of up to 10% because presumably they're charged.
Yeah, but what it does do, I've got a friend, he's from Gibraltar. When he comes, I ever go for a drink with him. He drinks half pints of lager. He drinks quite a lot of them, it's got to be said. It keeps it cooler and fresher and fizzier, rather than just getting a pint.
Yeah, I only drink halves.
Yeah,
for that reason.
And what would you think if when you're doing your shopping and you swipe your loyalty card at whichever is your chosen supermarket, and you subsequently get an email saying, we noticed that you'd bought quite a lot of beer, and we suggest that you substitute it for fruit juice, because we understand that Tesco says it could use club card data to warn shoppers when they're buying too many unhealthy items.
As they actually shop, as they're going down the aisle. You've got a bus saying, too much salt, Mr Madeley, too much salt.
As they sell it to you.
Exactly.
As they sell it to you.
It's the intrusion I don't like, actually.
Mind their own business is what I'd say.
It would drive me nuts.
Yeah,
I was telling Susanna before.
They're salted too.
Somebody sent me a bottle of wine as a thank you present recently, and the packaging company had put on the package, drink sensibly.
Oh,
Get lost.
Quite right.
I will drink my present of my wine at exactly the volume that I want to drink it, and I don't need a packaging company to give me a health lecture.
So can I just point out, we are getting fatter and unhealthier as a nation. I don't think there's anything wrong if I was buying a whole load of ready meals and Tesco, in this case, sent me an email saying, did you know you could have made that yourself and you would have saved, I don't know, £4.
Why would they want to do that?
And it would have been healthier.
What's it going to do to their business model?
Well,
you know what it is?
I'm sorry, I'll cross the road.
Hang on. They're selling you those ready meals. This is all a profiteering, greedy corporation trying to give itself
what they want to do is to drive you to more expensive products within the supermarket.
What happens if it was saving you money and healthier?
No, they won't be doing that.
I just can't believe that we've got trigger warnings before the news, we've got trigger warnings when we go to the theatre, now we've got trigger warnings when we shop.
I don't mind. When I put Netflix on, I don't mind them saying this film's got violence and gore. Nobody thinks, well, watch it. I mean, I'm not going to say I'll have unhealthy foods, but I don't mind. I'd like a traffic light system or something very
I think
simple.
more education on what we eat is not a bad thing.
They're infantilising us. That's what they're doing.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, we're going to be debating that this morning, so let us know what you think.
Two toddlers here.
Thank you both very much indeed.